Whatever the occasion, effortless elegance is right this way. Because Hilton brings you new ways to stay courtesy of the Nomad London. And it doesn't stop at award-winning dining in a space draped in velvet and illuminated by vintage chandeliers. No, this day goes beyond with unparalleled personalized service and attentive hospitality. Oh, and did we mention the Nomad London can be booked using your Hilton Honors points at Hilton.com? Hilton, for the stay.
I want you to meet the Chief Theater Critic for the New York Times, Jesse Green. And Jesse has and is having an amazing career. And he's going to give us a look at what's coming in to the Broadway Times and how you should start getting your tickets now. So, Jesse, Broadway's been having a hard time, like even the restaurant industry, too. Are you optimistic at this point?
I'm fairly optimistic. Last year was a transitional year. The year before had been a complete disaster. There was 15 months during which Broadway theaters and all theaters were dark with nothing happening and everything moved online. And last season, we started to move out of that in a kind of weird and intermittent and honestly a little bit chaotic way. The shows had to cancel constantly. People were getting sick. People backstage, there weren't enough people to cover roles. It was very, very difficult. Seems to be a little more orderly. And this fall has a really interesting slate on Broadway and off Broadway of shows of all different kinds to appeal to, I think, a lot of different people.
Of course, and we just have to get them up and going.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think people have gone the other way, too used to sitting on the couch and letting things happen in their living rooms.
Well, that's right, Joan. And there is some concern among the producers that they won't be able to attract audiences even to material that they normally would like. But, the evidence from the end of the previous season, this past spring, is that the crowd-pleasing shows and the shows that get great reviews are managing to fill up. So there is hope.
I'm with you. I certainly do. Now, if you're looking at what you want to get tickets for, and this is the time when we always get phone calls, like for restaurant reservations, for theater, the movies seem to be losing out a little bit, in terms of people wanting to go. I miss movie theaters. I wish we had those back too. But tell me, if you were going to have your family come in or friends go to buy tickets, what would you be looking at now?
Well, that's the thing, isn't it, Joan? I mean, we have family, we have friends, we have aunts who need one kind of thing. We have young friends who need another kind of thing. And one of the things I love about this season, the Broadway season, looking at it, is that there is quite a variety. So we range from, for instance, what is promising to be a really big old-fashioned, story musical based on the great movie Some Like It Hot, with a score by the people who gave us Hairspray. And I think surely that's a big, exciting one that you would think of for your out-of-town visitors. But on the other end of the musical scale, you have a small and delicate and beautiful show. Usually each season has weight, and there's enough market and prestige to get that going. I saw this one off Broadway. It's called Kimberly Akimbo. It stars Victoria Clark, and it's just delicious. So there's a wide range there. There's a production, a revival of 1776 with an all-female cast. So in terms of musicals, it's all over the place. There's a Korean pop musical. There's Almost Famous, based on the Cameron Crowe movie. A lot of really interesting stuff. But the plays are really quite a nice variety of fun and thoughtful, which is what I like to see in a season, both. I don't know about you, Joan. I mean, I like seeing a lot of different kinds of things. I don't want to see just one thing.
No, that's right. But we're lucky because we go to theater all the time.
Yes.
And many people come into the city or they bring their families in, and it's a once or twice a year. I have gotten a lot of calls about Death of a Salesman at the Hudson.
Yes, well, Death of a Salesman, obviously one of the great American plays, but with a really relevant twist, I think, which is that it's an all-black cast led by the great Sharon D. Clarke as Linda Lohman and Wendell Pierce as Willie Lohman, and with Andre DeShields in the cast as well, and obviously approved by the Miller estate. I think I haven't seen it yet. It was done in London. It was quite a big success there. But I think you can imagine the ways in which the themes of, feeling betrayed by your country might play out very well with a black cast. And I'm looking forward to that, as I am to a revival of the Piano Lesson by August Wilson with Samuel Jackson and Danielle Brooks in it. And among other revivals, there's Between Riverside and Crazy, the Stephen Adly Guirgis play directed by Austin Pendleton, which won the Pulitzer a number of years ago. But there's also a lot of new plays, including a new play by one of our greatest living playwrights, who has said that this may be his last play, Tom Stoppard. And that play is called Leopoldstadt. And that is opening soonest. That's the first of the big Broadway openings. Previews begin September 14th. And it's a really interesting story about Jewish life in early 20th century Vienna, based on his late in life discovery that he himself was Jewish. He did not know this. It was kept from him. And so to what degree it's autobiographical, I'm not sure. But, a Stoppard play on that subject has got to be of great interest.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm curious, Jesse, how did you grow up to be Jesse Green Theater Critic?
Well, the Jesse Green was my parents' doing. They gave me both my names. And I was always, they tell me that I was always highly critical. So, that makes sense. I sort of imagined myself being a judge. I liked deciding arguments and also imposing my will. As it turns out, being a theater critic isn't really just that. And it was, Joan, honestly, it's too long a story, but it was mostly an accident. I set out to be in the theater, and I'd worked in the theater in the 80s on the music side of Broadway shows. And then my degree was in English, so I was writing, and then I became a journalist. And, one day an editor said, I need somebody to cover the theater reviews for a few months while someone's on leave. Will you do it? And I said, no. And I hate writing reviews. And he said, well, I need you to do it, so you're doing it. And that was 9 years ago, and that's how I started being a critic. I don't really know how the rest happened, but, I'd had a long time learning how to write. And that's basically what it is. It's writing about your own response to what you see. You don't need to agree with everyone. They just need to know who you are, and then they can make up their own mind based on knowing, well, he liked that and I hated that, or he hated that and I loved it. And that's how I grew up reading reviews. I knew what I would like based on how I knew the reviewers.
Which is always, and everyone would talk about the reviewers too. Did you read what? And
exactly.
What did he say? And people
I did that even though
I
didn't even grow up in New York, and somehow that was part of my family discussion. And, we were all interested in theater and got the New York magazines and newspapers. So it's a great service that these publications do. And I will say, not to toot my own horn, but criticism isn't just for the people who are choosing which ticket to buy. It's for people who will never be able to buy that ticket or will only be able to do it once a year when they visit New York. It's really about understanding our culture and giving examples of it and thinking about what these works, many of them very serious works, even if they have comical or musical overtones, about our lives. And for me as a theater nut growing up, that was a wonderful thing. I read Brendan Gill and I read Clive Barnes and all those people. And I guess somewhere I stored that and it came.
Yeah. And they became members of the family too. You'd hear people say, Clive loved blank, like Clive was their uncle.
Exactly. oh, she didn't, Edith Oliver, she didn't like that play, but then I don't like her taste. So yeah, exactly. It was making the larger world of culture something that was part of your intimate and personal world. And I loved that about it. And it's something I miss, in our current situation where there just aren't a lot of critics left who have professional jobs. A lot of it has moved online and into Twitter. And that's all fine. But I'd like to see more critics and a greater variety of critics than we currently have.
Yeah, I'm absolutely with you. I think it's so important. It's an entire part of culture, and we can't let it fall by the wayside. Now, you also write books, and it's more than theater, although theater can take up 90% of your time in the season. But you have a new book out.
Yes, and it's about theater too, and in part. I am the co-author of a book called Shy, the alarmingly outspoken memoirs of Mary Rodgers. Many of you may know Mary Rodgers as the daughter of Richard Rodgers. You may know her as the composer of Once Upon a Mattress, a really fine theater composer in her own right. Later, she changed careers and wrote books for young adults, including the Freaky Friday series, which were, tremendously culturally big. And later, she was the chairman of the Juilliard School for many years. So she had an amazing life right at the center of the theatrical and culture of New York in the second half of the 20th century. And I spent a couple years with her before she died, listening to everything she remembered, which was nearly everything, being shocked by it. And when I got my jaw off the ground, I started to write it. That's when she died. But I wrote the book after her death, based entirely on our conversations. And I have to tell you, it's doing really well, but I just think it's hilarious and moving.
That sounds really good. Have you seen the Neil Diamond musical, A Beautiful Noise?
I haven't. It had a tryout in Boston and got some nice reviews. I'm really looking forward to it. A lot of shows, most shows that come in, I have not seen before, but some of them have appeared off Broadway, or maybe I happened to be out of town when they were trying out somewhere. But it's like a present under a tree or something. Just what is this thing going to be? You read about it. You read the critics out of town. You read the publicity about what they're trying to do, and then you wait. And that's certainly one. If you like Neil Diamond, for instance, it's pretty much the only jukebox musical this fall. Usually we have a bunch of them, but this is the only traditional jukebox musical telling the story of the creator of the songs, Neil Diamond, and it stars the great Will Swenson. So I'm expecting it to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, and then I was curious about Audra McDonald starring in Ohio State Murders.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because I should have pointed that out early. That's an interesting play, in both for what it is and that it's appearing on Broadway. It was written in 1992, and like a lot of plays by our great Black playwrights, it never got to Broadway in its time. And I think we're seeing a revision of that these years. Last year, there was a really wonderful production of a play like that starred LaChanze. And this year, we have this amazing, difficult play by Adrienne Kennedy from 1992 about a writer, a journalist, who returns to her alma mater, Ohio State, to talk about the destructive power of racism. And then something happens while she's there. I'm not going to give it away. And having Audra McDonald star in it, just makes it a must-see play for the fall. And I also want to say that the theater that she's doing it in used to be called, for maybe 80 years, the Court Theater. It's kind of a mess of a theater recently. They've completely redone it and renamed it now the James Earl Jones Theater, which is thrilling in itself.
It is. And I mean, there's so much. There's Camelot coming back again.
Well, yes, that won't be until April. That won't be till April. And there's lots of, it's still so far away that there's a lot of rumors going on about who's going to be starring in it. Yeah. I mean, I cannot endorse this rumor. It doesn't seem likely to me, but in a reading of the musical or a workshop of the musical at some point, the leading role was played by Lin-Manuel Miranda. I, for one, would love to see that, but we'll see what happens. That'll be at Lincoln Center Theater in April. We also have if we're talking about the spring, we have a Sweeney Todd revival coming up starring Josh Groban, who is, obviously someone who can sing that part, and Anna Lee Ashford, who's a terrific comic actress, and I'm really looking forward to that. They promise a full orchestra, which we rarely get anymore, and will be thrilling. And a new stage version of the musical New York, New York. The film musical is supposedly coming. A new Kander and Ebb musical long after Ebb has died, but Kander's still hard at work in his mid-90s.
It's fantastic.
Yeah,
yeah. Jesse, do you ever do 2 shows a day, or that's too much?
Well, I have done it, but it is, like you say, Joan, it really is too much, especially if I have to write about them, because, I try to keep each show separate and write about them before I have to see the next one, but it doesn't always work, and it can get a little exhausting and confusing. There are parts of the season, particularly October and April, when everything is opening, and I sometimes can't avoid seeing 2 shows in one day. But I really, honestly, I try to keep it to 4 in a week at a maximum if I can. Lot. It's already a lot because I'm not just seeing them; I'm thinking about them, and it takes a long time to think.
No, and it takes a long time to write, too.
Yes.
So,
as you know, but I'm just thrilled at the variety. I haven't even talked about off-Broadway, but there's just so much for different tastes. There's going to be a revival this fall of Merrily We Roll Along at the New York Theater Workshop, starring Daniel Radcliffe, for instance, and a revival of the great Adam Guettel musical. Adam Guettel is Mary Rodgers' son, and he wrote the musical Floyd Collins, which is having a revival. And there's a new David Hare play. There's a revival at the Public of A Raisin in the Sun. All kinds of great stuff off Broadway.
Right. And theater is alive and well. And we live in the greatest city in the world. It's our obligation to support it because it's the reason people come here from all over the world is to go to 42nd Street or in that neighborhood and drink in all the excitement. Thank you, Jesse. I look forward to talking to you again.
Thank you, Joan.
You'll come visit us with your new book.
Okay, thanks.
Hello, folks. Larry Kudlow here. Pay attention, because China is leading the largest anti-American alliance since World War II. One that's already dumped U.S. bonds, grabbed 43 million acres of our farmland, and is plotting to dethrone the dollar. That's why IRA and 401k savers are protecting their savings with gold. Please go to freegoldguide.com/Kudlow or just call 800-621-3908 for your free gold guide on how to protect your wealth with gold 100% tax-free.